Here we go. It's another special edition of the 50/50 podcast presented by Physical Athletics. Our proud partner is Physical Athletics. For those of you in the Borderland region here in El Paso, you can find them at 2270 Joe Battle Boulevard. They are doing some cutting edge stuff. The director of strength and conditioning there, Coach Armando Aguilar, him and his staff, they're doing some cutting edge things and applying science to your game. All right, so whether you are a middle school, high school athlete, an aspiring college athlete, a current college athlete, or maybe even an aspiring pro, they are the ones to see. You can find them on all social media platforms at Physical Athletic. That's FYZICAL Athletic, as well as on their website at physicalathletics.com. So here we are. We've made it. The big tournament, the grand tournament, is over. Just wrapped up. We just finished watching the San Antonio Lee Volunteers win their first state title in over 50 years. I believe that's in any sport. So congratulations to them. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But it's been a great 2 days. Great 2 days there in Georgetown, and I'm glad to be joined by one of our high school soccer experts from our collaboration with San Antonio Soccer Roundtable, Coach Rafa. Rafa, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm juiced, man. I'm excited.
I am too.
Can't believe the high school season has come to a close. And usually I end it with this, but I think I'll start it with this time, is that I'm elated that we made it here, and that we were able to crown champions this year. Unlike unlike last year, where I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was either yesterday or today.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, marked the 1 year anniversary of where everything was essentially shut down. So we're just glad that we're here. For the most part, we were largely, as a whole, as a high school soccer community here in Texas, largely, not entirely, obviously, but largely, the impact was, I'd like to say, minimal. But obviously, there were some people were impacted by the pandemic, and some people. Let's not lose sight of the fact that some people did lose family, friends, loved ones. So, but despite all of that, I'm glad the game. This is what makes the game great. It's able to bring people together, able to crown. We brought what was my run on numbers breakdown that I had in a tweet yesterday. 12 teams, 6 games, right? 3 classifications, crowning 3, and crowning 3 champions in 3 different classifications. So glad we got that done. So what were your initial thoughts when you look over before we go into looking each day, Coach? What were kind of your just initial thoughts that we made it here and that it is now complete? The 2021 season has come to an end.
I was very kind of nervous going into the season if we were gonna even get to this point, because I had seen, high school football teams in the playoffs in the fall, forfeit games, and even some basketball teams. And I was hoping, hopefully this doesn't happen to our soccer teams, getting COVID and you have to forfeit a by-district game or area game. And I got, kudos to all the teams out there. We came out without a hitch. We played all the games, for the playoffs, and congrats to all the 6 state champions. I'm sure they're relieved now after sitting out a year, and all the coaches. And then tomorrow, starting Monday, 2022 starts. Start preparing for, see who could repeat, or we'll have maybe some new contenders.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I don't know. I think that's why I'm so juiced. It's like I'm. The one season ends, and then you kind of get that, like, hey, you're glad. If there was ever a year where you're glad we made it here, it was this year. But you're also kind of juiced for, like, you see these state champions crowned, and you're happy for them. You feel joy for them. You're grateful for them. Your heart goes out to the state runner-up as well, who they all, just to make it here is incredible. But different storylines across all these games, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I think that as you see these state champions being crowned, you start to you start to kind of get that bug, like, man, I want to be back out there. I want to be back out there with my team, right? So, so you kind of get that energy, and then now you got to start playing for off-season training. So, so yeah, and more to come on that, because some of the DMs that I've been getting a lot of DMs on, hey, where are you going next? Where are you going to be coaching next? So, some possible news on that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more a little later. So, all right, Coach. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to look at both days. We'll look at day one yesterday. We'll look at the girls' side of the house, which consisted of our 4A, 5A, and 6A matchup, which took place at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. Central Time. They're at Birkelbach, there in Georgetown. So our first match, we look at it, the 4A girls final. Midlothian Heritage, and then a team that was really making history there in Corpus Christi, Cal Allen. First Coastal Bend, first Corpus team to be the Corpus school to be there ever. Pretty amazing stuff. What were your thoughts? What were your impressions on that match?
I think that, going into that game, I knew Cal Allen had a tall task going against a very good Heritage team. That's been, the school hasn't really been open for too long. But they've been dominating, like I said, becoming one of those 4A powerhouses for soccer. I mean, for the girls and also for the boys too. But you have to play the games. Anything can happen. But I think, like I said, I think Midlothian was going as one of the favorites coming in this year. And I know we had some other contenders. But, they didn't miss a beat. They flexed their muscle, and like I said, they didn't leave anything in doubt. I think Cal and Kenny came in a little overmatched, but they'll learn from this, and hopefully maybe, they'll make another run. They did beat some good teams to get to the final. Nothing to take away from what the accomplishments from Cal, and so hopefully they know what it takes to get to this point, and and they'll hopefully learn from this game, and hopefully if they do get to see Midlothian again, or maybe a team that caliber, they can make those adjustments and hopefully bring a state championship back to their, back to Corpus Christi.
Yeah, it was, and that match ended in a 6-0 final in favor of Midlothian Heritage, and obviously, and that was I think a Cal Allen squad. For me, that was clearly my, I guess, Cinderella, if you will. But they were, I don't know if it can be argued. It wasn't so much that the moment was too big for them. It was more of nobody expected them to be in that moment, So they were, you want to talk about house money, not just glad to be there, obviously, but they were trying to make the most of their opportunity there. But they just ran into a buzzsaw on Midlothian Heritage that was just clearly, you could tell, was the better quality squad on the day. But kudos to Cal Allen, because they accomplished a lot, and you want to talk about something that they can build on there. That's pretty significant in terms of when you start talking about culture and reshaping, and this is usually how these powers, this is usually how they're born. They take, they're steady. They surprise some people, and then they take one big giant step. Right now the question becomes is, how do they follow it up next year? Right. So, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach.
I think what they really need to do to take that, when you learn from game losses, for me, coaching wise, even in the club level, you learn from losses and you see what you need to do to make those adjustments to match up, to a team like that. I think during the off season, I think Callan really there's some things maybe work on a little more speed, a little physicality, because they were pushed around in that game, and also work a little more on the technical work, and that's just something, like Heritage was a complete team, and like you mentioned, they just buzzed all through this, and and they could have put a lot more goals if they wanted to, but they just settled for the 6, and they got them the state title.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And again, congratulations to the Jaguars of Midlothian Heritage, as they are your 2021 4A girls state champions, and to the Corpus Christi Cal Allen I'm drawing a blank on their mascot. What are they again?
Wildcats.
Yeah. I was thinking Bobcats. They are on the being the state runner-up for 2021. All right, Coach. So we move over to 5A, a game that I was very excited for because I knew it was going to be a battle. The 5A girls took place at 2 p.m. yesterday. The Dripping Springs Lady Tigers and Frisco Wakeland Wolverines. What were your impressions? What were your thoughts on that one?
This was going to be a real good chess match. I mean, you got two heavyweights going in, and we kind of thought maybe Wakeland would, because they did knock off some really good teams, on the way here. They knocked off, like I said, a really good, who was the previous round, Highland Park, who was number 1 in the state. So, they were going in as a favorite, but I think we talked, from off camera that Dripping Springs team, that defense, as like the old saying goes, defense wins championships, and Dripping Springs was able to pull off a couple real close games. So, one or the other was going to tip the scale, and like I said, Dripping Springs brought a championship to Region 4, and congrats to them. Beautiful goal. That second goal was a beautiful goal.
Yeah.
That's to get that one in, and I think that kind of shocked Wakeland, and they just really didn't recover from that. And then, like I said, Dripping Springs put that kind of like the Great Wall of China defense and didn't allow really anything in, and just took care of business. So congratulations there to the Lady Tigers there at Dripping Springs.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal defense. I think I remember. So we were talking about it yesterday, and obviously they were trying to make her first name escapes me. The goalkeeper, last name is Dill. She was in there attempting to make that defense and that goalkeeper attempting to make history, right? As being the first school to ever have 7 clean sheets in the state playoffs, and of course that was kind of negated about 20 minutes in when Wakeland gets the first. But they regrouped. They, credit to Dripping Springs. You can clearly tell. You can easily say that is not a squad that is used to playing from behind. Not this year. That was only their 4th goal they've allowed all season.
And that was their one goal about a month, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Forgot what I told you. Was it March
18th?
March 18th. Yeah, March 18th versus Kerrville Tivy was one of their district foes. Was the last time they had allowed a goal. So, and that's saying a lot. This is a squad that plays in a district with Bernie Champion, Alamo Heights, Kerrville Tivy. So this is a very tough district. So they go down 1-0. And then they quickly respond. And I know the kind of the joke that I made with you and Harry, I should say, was Dripping Springs just couldn't. They didn't seem to feel like scoring simple goals, right? They scored these incredible goals, right? The first one was a receive and quick turn as she's falling about 19-20 yards out that goes upper 90. And then that second goal, threading the needle between 2 defenders and a keeper, that just gets inside the left post there. It was a great game. And just watching, so Dripping Springs goes ahead 2-1, and then obviously you have Wakeland is now chasing the game. They're pushing the action, and Dripping Springs defense. So it was this unstoppable force, immovable object, back and forth. So it was a great match for sure. Anything surprise you in that one, Coach?
I think that second goal really rattled Wakeland. I think they're like, okay, let's tie. We're because they were the aggressor, and they were, like I said, they got the first goal. They were really pressing. They had opportunities to actually really blow up in the game. This game could have been 2-0 or even 3-0 at some point before Dripping Springs got the equalizer. I think had that tip, that way for them, they probably would be the state champions now. But, Dripping Springs didn't, get their heads down. After that goal, they regrouped and got that equalizer, and they just kept on grinding and grinding, and they finally got that, like I said, got the second one to win the game. So yeah, that second goal really, affected them, and they just really didn't really recover from that. And like I said, they, Dripping Springs, they just clamped down on that defense. They're, whatever you can call it, the Great Wall of China or the Legion of Boom defense, something, they just find a way not to get you to score, so, props to them, props to the coaching staff, excellent job. What are you guys doing? Working on defense. Great job on that. And I think they're a pretty young team too, I think, going in. So you could see them again next year. So they could repeat again.
The Great Wall of China. We got a new nickname for them. Wow. Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know if you recall, I don't know if we talked about it in episode, trying to look it up here, in episode 2 or 3 of Inside Texas High School Soccer. Talked about their defense. I think it was episode 3. We talked about their not just their ability to finish, but their obviously they can finish, but they're defensive oriented, which is always, is it always the sexiest, the flashiest thing? No, not necessarily, but the saying goes of defense wins championships. That exists for a reason, right? But one of the things that I mentioned that I really hit on, what I really liked about them, was you could just tell they're a very mentally tough team, right? Very mentally just strong, just tough, just and gritty group. And and you talk about their youth, it was Caroline Dill, their goalkeeper. She was named the player of the match for the state final yesterday, and she had, I believe, I can't remember, it was five saves or 7 saves, but she had very good. Kudos to Wakeland, because Wakeland kept coming at them, and even with that strong defense from Dripping Springs, Wakeland still tested their goalkeeper, Caroline Dill, and she came up with some very big saves. And then, but yeah, you talk about their youth. Goalkeeper, she's just a sophomore. And their two players that scored goals yesterday, I believe, are either both sophomores or one's a freshman. I think one's a freshman and one's a sophomore. So that says a lot that speaks a lot to the fact that Dripping Springs isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So could it be the start of? I know their coach just wants to enjoy this one, but could it be the start of possibly a run, a dynasty? Who knows? But they definitely, now they have that target on their back, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what we see from teams is, they can often tell you, it's so hard to win a state title, right? It really is. But then now defending that state title or winning another one, that can oftentimes, or just to get back to a state title game, that can be very tough, very tough. And we'll talk about that a little bit more on the boys' side in a little bit. So any final thoughts on this one, Coach, before we move on to 6A?
No, that was a great game, and congrats to Dripping Springs, and congrats also to the Booster Club, one of the best booster clubs, like I said, one of the best in the state, yeah. and also look out for them. I think they have a good opportunity of repeating, winning Region 4. I know there'll be some teams, maybe Alamo Heights or Cedar Park, or maybe even that Gregory Portland team may have something to say, or McAllen. But like I said, in order to be the best, you got to beat. In order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And right now, Dripping Springs is going to go into 2022, being the best team, not only in the region but in the state. Yeah,
and make no doubt about it, that Region 4 in 5A, in girls 5A, is stacked. You still got a very young McAllen team that made a deep run. You have a Cedar Park team that really surprised a lot of people. That's relatively young. You have a Bernie Champion squad that's very young still. So next year, just getting out of that district is going to be interesting. But yeah, that Region 4 as a whole is going to be very good for sure. So. All right, Coach, and then our nightcap yesterday, the one of the two, what I called were going to be kind of my dream matchups. This was the one on the girls' side. Unfortunately, the one on the boys' side didn't come to fruition. But this one was one of my two dream matchups that I wanted to see. And it was, I think, just as you said when we were talking offline, it was an absolute heavyweight battle. It really was. So in Flower Mound, Louisville Flower Mound, versus Austin Vandegrift, the Vipers. What was going into this game? What were your thoughts, Coach?
This game was, like I said, I mean, you can't see, normally you don't see games like this in the regular season, because of their far away. So, to me, I thought this game was going to be who has, I guess, as far as just the amount of talent, who's going to tip the scale and dominate and go after winning the state title. I mean, if you look at Flower Mound, look at some of the teams they beat. I mean, they beat some pretty impressive teams just to get out of Region 1. And not a knock on Vandegrift either. They beat some pretty good teams too as well. I mean, they blew out Reagan. I was at that game. I was surprised that they put 6 goals on Reagan. They came back and got revenge on Ron Rock, who had won the district championship, in their district. They came back. They were actually down 2-0. They came back and scored 4 straight. So, like I said, going into this game, this is, like I said, was a heavyweight fight, and we got our money's worth of this game. This is one of the best games, for the girls side to see in a few years.
Yeah, and with Vandegrift, I think Vandegrift, they definitely surprised some people. They're coached by I don't know if it's Charisse LaChapelle, the former UT Longhorn standout. she's now their coach, and I think it's easy to say that she has them way ahead of schedule. Because I think going in, a lot of the talk that I was hearing, interacting with people, was that, hey, they really, hey, Vandegrift made it here. They were able to beat Round Rock, who a lot of people really expected to maybe be here instead of them. And, it's like they were kind of like, hey, we really glad for them that they made it here, but that they didn't expect them to really last long. With Flower Mound, who's just running through people, on super high confidence, playing really well, especially ever since that when they kind of just seemed to turn it up a notch, flip a switch when they beat Prosper, and then ever since then. So, yeah, but I think when you watch the game, especially about the first, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes, it was very, I think it got a lot of people by surprise, because Vandegrift was, they were the ones dictating the pace. They were the ones generally controlling possession. They were the ones that looked a little bit more settled. And then Flower Mound finally settled. So, yeah, I mean, over the course of the game, I think it was, you could tell, I came away from this game very impressed with Vandegrift's ability to defend 1v1 and 50-50 balls. Everything, they were game, they were ready to go, and they were challenging Flower Mound for everything. So it was 1-1. Then Lewis, Flower Mound takes the lead 2-1, and it just kind of seemed like they took the lead in those last 20 minutes. Just kind of seemed like Flower Mound kind of waited them out, and Vandegrift just kind of finally just ran out of some steam in those last, I guess, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on that, especially when you saw that, it's a tight game, it's 1-1, and then we enter those last 20 minutes or so?
Well, you can say that Flower Mound really took it up a notch. They hit in another gear, and I think that's what's helped them win those big games against Prosper and Marcus. They just took it, when it was they were grinding it out. They say, hey, let's take this to the next gear and let's get this win. And that's what they did. They totally wore out Vandegrift, which, stuff to say, they were very physical against the other teams, and they had worn those teams out. And never did I think that they would, Flower Mound was more kind of a little of the finesse team, but they grinded out. They weren't intimidated by, by the speed and by the size by Vandegrift. And like I said, they took it up a notch and was able to get that second goal to get them the win. And and kudos to them. That's sometimes you have to dig deep. Like the heart of a champion, you got to dig deep inside yourself to get what you want. And that's what, like I said, that's what Flower Mound did yesterday.
Right. Yeah. And it was that was a game, both, that 5A and 6A game, but I mean, just that 6A game alone, excuse me, was, dare I say, the price of admission, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I think, I think that was just a great game. That was one of those games where you would love to have been at. So again, so congratulations, 5A Dripping Springs. They are the out of Region 4. They are the 2021 5A girls state champions, and Frisco Wakeland the state runner-up. And then in 6A, Flower Mound out of Region 1, the 2021 6A girls state champion, and Austin Vandegrift, the 6A girls state runner-up. So congratulations to all participants. So after yesterday, that kind of put a bow on it. That sealed the deal for the girls side of the house. The girls soccer season was officially in the books, and then we got ready for today. We were ready. We were transitioning into today, and so going into today, your thoughts this morning, Coach, as you were looking at these games, 4A, 5A, 6A. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, I know for us, like for the roundtable, we're looking forward for two of them, because the two of the teams are from our region, for Region 4, which is the Bernie Greyhounds and also the Lee Volunteers. And then the game that was really anticipating, because my little buddy Lethal out there, the Wakeland versus Kingwood Park. I think that was going to be a grind out game, but I'll save the best for that in a bit. But like I said, we had some intriguing matchups, some surprise teams like Diamond Hill Jarvis. No one expected them to be in the state final. You can call them. They were like a Cinderella. Were they going to be able to, pull it off? They were the first Fort Worth ISD team to make it to a state title, for boys and girls soccer. So congrats to them for accomplishing that. Other scenarios, can Lee, find redemption after losing in PKs in 2019? There was a lot of storylines going into these three championship games.
Yeah, and you hit the interesting thing. So we look at 4A. We started again. These games were just like yesterday, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. Central Time. You look at the 4A boys. We start there between Bernie. It was kind of like going into these the state semifinals earlier in the week. Bernie was the one team that everybody expected to be there on the 4A boys side. The other three were all kind of like, hey man, how did they kind of get here, right? But everybody was really talking about your boys, Diamond Hill Jarvis, Fort Worth Diamond Hill Jarvis, about is like, who are these guys, right? And and it's interesting. You talk about the parallels. Between the 4A boys and the 4A girls, where I don't think it is not a coincidence, and it speaks to the growth of the game and where this game is headed in the state, where you have on the girls side 4A Corpus Christi, Cal Allen, the first Corpus school ever, right, in a state championship match. Then you turn around, you look at the 4A boys, and you have Fort Worth Diamond Hill Jarvis, the first, just as you said, the first Fort Worth ISD squad ever in a state title game. So I think those are, not only are they great stories and they kind of make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but it's very important in terms of where this game is headed. What also reinforces that is, we look back to yesterday again, the 5A girls, and I know I had this conversation with you, is that it speaks a lot to, again, the growth of the game and where the game is headed when a small town, small hill country town in Dripping Springs, it can win a 5A state title. It says a lot. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So yeah, you can argue, well, they have club players here, or they go here, or they do this. It doesn't matter. It's like in the end, they still have to make the commitment. They still have to put in the hard work day in and day out, and they have to see it through, right? So so I think those all make for incredible stories and very important to highlight, right? Very important that can't get lost on us, because it speaks well in terms of where the game is headed, how far the game has come, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But so, Coach, so here we are. We had the 4A boys, Bernie, and your guys, Fort Worth, Diamond Hill, Jarvis. How did this game play out? Anything like you expected? Exactly like you expected? When you look back on it, the final was 3-0, 3-0 Bernie. Bernie was
3-1.
Or 3-1. Sorry, yeah, that's right, 3-1, 3-1. And I forgot they got that late one. 3-1 was the final. But in terms of how the game kind of played out, what were your thoughts?
Well, that game I kind of had to flip back and forth because I was working a preview day for my university, so I had to watch the game on the phone. But I mean, what can you say about Bernie? I mean, they just flexed their muscle. I mean, what they did to Hidalgo, I mean, they did the same thing to Diamond Hill, but even though they didn't get the amount of the goals, they just tactically were just a lot better, and you can tell the difference. And kudos to them. Their only loss this year was to the 6A state champions. That says a lot, for a program that's lost to a team that's two classifications up. So going into this game, they were the favorites, but they were gonna. They could say, hey, we're gonna end this. We're gonna make your Cinderella go back at midnight. We're not gonna get upset. And they took care of business. They weren't gonna allow Jarvis to kind of dictate the game. It was all Bernie. I think they could have scored a lot more, and I think they missed some opportunities. But kudos to them on a great season. For what they have accomplished. And I think Jarvis was a little too over their head. I think they haven't seen a team like Bernie maybe all year, and hopefully maybe out of this, because they'll learn. Maybe we can make these adjustments, and that way we can compete if we ever get to this point. But what you can say about, like I said, Bernie. Bernie did an excellent job, and like I said, congratulations to the Greyhounds on winning the 4A boys state title. I think your microphone is off.
Oh, sorry. And kudos, good catch. Kudos again to Bernie. Congratulations to the Greyhounds. Their second state soccer title in state history, and their first since '06, which, ironically enough, a coach that was coaching in the 6A final was the coach at Bernie when they last won a state title. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But yeah, I thought you look back at it, and I guess those first 20-25 minutes, it was kind of what you expected. It's like Bernie was being consistent, just like they've been all year, consistent. Diamond Hill Jarvis looked like, hey, the moment was a lot for them. And of course, not just the moment, but then of course, a very good Bernie squad in front of them. Then about, I don't know, somewhere in around those last 10 minutes or so, they started to figure things out a little bit. Just couldn't capitalize. Again, that's part of a team that is, that's relatively young, so to speak, but also just not used to playing in that moment. I guess you could say they just and Bernie's kind of one of those squads that when they give you an opportunity, you have to capitalize, because if not, they're going to make you pay later. So kind of thought, going into halftime, that there was maybe some hope there for, all right, we're going to have a good, we'll have a very strong second half. And then second half, it was Bernie just kind of put on the afterburners and really started to separate themselves in terms of just pace, intensity. But overall, I mean, it was kind of, I guess you could say, to a certain extent, it kind of came in phases, but the game overall kind of played out the way I expected it, generally speaking. So again, congratulations to the Bernie Greyhounds, the 4A boys state champion, and to Fort Worth Diamond Hill Jarvis, the 4A state runner-up. So congrats to both squads. Then we move over to 5A, Coach. The one that a lot of people were anticipating, thought was going to be the the match of the day, I guess, the one that was going to be like the two really, really even squads. I didn't see that, but that was a lot of the talk in so out of Region 1, Frisco Wakeland, and out of Region 3, I believe, Humble Kingwood Park, K Park. Going into this one, what were you anticipating? I kind of know. I think you and I were on the same page on this one, but what were your thoughts going into this?
After watching Kingwood, like I said, luckily the Kingwood Park, they played here in San Antonio, so I got to see them play against Valley View, and very talented squad, very opportunistic. But I did see some things that, if they ran into a real complete team, and what I mean a complete team that could really defend, technical wise, and also get you on counterattacks and make you pay, for just for the little things, this they had a tall task to do. I did see, like I said, watching that game, K Park, to allow 4 goals on the team against Valley View, who I didn't think really deserved to be in that in that spot, because I think Brazo Porter, that's a whole other discussion, but that showed me, okay, if Wakeland, if you play a team like Wakeland, they're gonna make you pay, and that's sure enough. Going into this game, you can see Wakeland really kept flexed its muscle as far as the pace, possession of the ball. They weren't trying to force things like in the middle. And I think the one thing with K Park, they were forcing everything to their 2 key players, and Wakeland caught on with that. And they really kind of limited, even though one of them did get a brace, but they really limited what they can do. And, like I said, Wakeland had a good game plan going into this game. So, even though, like I said, the talent-wise, both teams have great talent, I just think Wakeland just had a little more oomph. Plus, Wakeland's been here for 4 straight years. That's a big boost, because you've been there, you got all that experience. As far as the pressure of the game, even if they were down a goal, I'm sure, like I said, they'll be able to regroup and say, hey, let's stay calm. We're still in this. We've been here before. We can get through this. So that's why me going into this game, a lot of people are saying K Park. For me, it was Wakeland, because, like I said, they're more of a complete team, and they had been there the last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And message here from Hoops Mike. Hey, fellas, great show. I was doing color commentary for NFHS on championship weekend. Really appreciated your insight into each matchup. Great job on your predictions. Thanks, Hoops Mike. Appreciate you. Appreciate your hard work as well over the weekend. Great stuff. Any little insight that you can share with us as well, Hoops Mike? Any questions you have for us? Your takeaways to share on here as well. So. I think that in the end, Frisco Wakeland they've really figured it out, especially on the boys' side. Obviously you had both them and their girls squad competing today this weekend for a state title, and so they've really figured it out, and they're you could say 20 minutes. I'm trying to remember that 2019 final when they lost to El Paso Bel Air. They're a mere probably 15 minutes away from having a 4-peat, right? Winning 4 in a row.
No.
So yeah, kudos to them. So you have again, congratulations to the Frisco Wakeland boys. They are the 5A boys state champion, and the Humble Kingwood Park boys, the 5A boys state runner-up. Another message here from Hoops Mike. You guys were on money. Wakeland really tough and solid. Absolutely.
I think with Wakeland, I guess with Wakeland, I can say is this: if you really watch them play, what really impressed me was just their touch of the ball, and then the spacing, a lot of the wall passes, and then one thing I did notice. Their defenders got involved in the offense. They were making runs from the back, and that was very key in that game, which Kingwood Park didn't do. that was really key, and that helped him, I think, get that second goal, to take the lead, to get that, the second and also the third goal. There were kind of key plays for that. So that's the kind of, like I said, if you want to model your soccer program, they're probably one of the best ones to model after. Like I said, just great technical play, great hustle, but one thing is a very good soccer IQ. And that's what Wakeland has as far as their program. And that's what helped them win this game.
Yeah, I think that, the interesting thing, and Frisco Wakeland, coming into it, that state semifinal match earlier in the week that they played at 6 a.m. I forget what time they played that game versus El Paso del Valle. And no, it wasn't really at 6 a.m. But it was early. It was early. They were able to score on that's where I knew, I was like, okay, this Frisco Wakeland squad is really good on the attack and how they can build, because they were able to score against a very, very stingy El Paso del Valle squad that was kind of peaking at the right time too. And that was still a great match. But when I saw that, I was just like, okay, I think I was saying to myself, Rafa's right. This is kind of that Wakeland squad that we're familiar with from going back to 2018, right? So yeah, kudos to them. Great stuff. Well coached. You talk about culture, and they expect to be here. That's the standard every year. You couldn't be more right in terms of more schools. We talk about more schools kind of model. They're kind of the model. More schools want to look after. It's like, okay, who do we want to be like? How, right? How do they go about their business? That's the thing with Frisco Wakeland. They're just about business. They go about their business routine, and that's what I really like to see from them. So congratulations, Frisco Wakeland, the 5A boys state champion again, and Humboldt Kingwood Park, the 5A boys state runner-up. All right, so final match of the 2021 high school soccer season. Game that started a couple hours ago, game that ended about less than 30 minutes ago, or less than 45 minutes ago, I should say. San Antonio Lee, all right, returning to the state title game after the 2019, unfortunate things didn't go as planned, where they fell to Flower Mound in a state final in penalties, and then versus Rockwall Heath. Rockwall Heath, the squad, kind of, I guess you could say to a certain extent, really, really good squad, really talented squad that figured things out at the right time, peaking, playing really exceptionally well at the right time, a lot of confidence, well coached, but you cannot say that they were exactly on a lot of people's minds, to be the team to be here. So, but yeah, they're fun to watch play. I'm a big fan of their goalkeeper out there, and Eli Finley is fun to watch. But also, a big shout out to San Antonio Lee, big supporters of the 50/50 podcast. Big shout out to to my buddy there, Coach Boz, who's the assistant on the girls' side and also was helping and assisting on the boys' side through this state title run. She does amazing things on the social media side as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later in another episode. But so coming into this match, Coach, what were your thoughts?
This is Lee's redemption game. Either this is what they've been looking forward since that loss to Flower Mound. I'm sure they could, like I said, last year, kind of like a little heartbreaking for them. They couldn't do it because I think they would have been in the same situation. Probably like some of the commentators made during the game, that they probably would have been at the final game. So they wanted to do this, not only for themselves, but also for those seniors that didn't get to do it last year. And,
right.
They were on a mission this year. I know they had one little hiccup, but they took care of, they got that game back, and, they just ran through some teams, and I think the one game, I think the turning point for them was that the shootout win versus Lake Travis. I think that, that haunted those shootout, the PKs haunted them. Getting that win really raised their confidence up. and
Absolutely.
and got them to this point. So, and then like I said, the others, with Rockwall, I mean, they beat some great teams that were under the radar. I think they mentioned something that they had a rough patch during the season, but then they only gave up one goal during the whole before the finals. On their playoff run to the state finals. So that tells you they have a really good stingy defense. So two different styles. One's a little flashy technically. One was going to grind it out, try to try to pull out a close one. But this was an interesting matchup going into this game to today.
Yeah, and I think you hit. You talked about the game a little bit, but I think I actually mentioned this when I was talking with Coach Boswell earlier in the week about how I was thinking about this game, and I was thinking about how I kind of the Spurs side of me came out, and I thought to the parallels between this team this year and back in 2019 versus if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the 2013 year and how it ended with them versus the Miami Heat and how they came back in 2014. So a lot of parallels there in terms of the season of redemption. So it was really, really great for them, really great to see them see that through. You're talking about a state-ranked, nationally ranked program. Coach Rogers has built an incredible machine there, great culture. So Hoops Mike, know the message here. I was doing play-by-play on the Lake Travis Lee matchup and can argue it was a championship caliber match. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great match. I think my commentary after that match on Twitter was 3 words, periods in between, of what a game. That was a great game. Very highly controversial call, obviously, in goal, which we broke down the best that we could from our angle, our point of view. But yeah, I think they're still, in Bethke from Lake Travis, he'll be back. So Lake Travis will be heard from again. And I see that as just a big, a continued growing, good, South Central Texas, whatever, Centex rivalry there between Lee and Lake Travis going forward. So absolutely, Hoops Mike, I would agree. I would definitely agree. And I think the one thing, I shouldn't say it's easy because it was just such a great match between Lake Travis and Lee. But I think in my opinion, what I think really got Lee going, and that they're a great squad. They don't need confidence boosters per se, but I think what really got them to find where they started to find their groove was before that. We talked about versus Vandegrift when they were able to versus Vandy, where they were able to redeem the only blemish on their record this season, and it wasn't just the fact that they won it, but it was also how they won it. They controlled that Vandy side in the state playoff match, end to end, and so I think once that propelled them to be ready for that Lake Travis matchup that I think almost was inevitable, that everybody saw them on a collision course. And then, yeah, absolutely. I mean, after that, it was kind of like, okay, we beat perhaps maybe the best squad. We were 1-2 in the state, beat perhaps the most talented squad, I guess you could say, that we're going to see this year. We beat, we advanced in penalties, so we got that monkey off our back. And then somewhere along the way, in this championship match versus Heath, we were talking about our commentary. It was like, okay, is that monkey completely, is it going to mess with them psychologically when they missed the penalty in that first half versus Heath? When you look back on it, how this game actually played out, Coach, we talked about, I think it's arguable, but I think that goal that was negated for Heath, I think should have probably been a goal as well. I mean, I've seen far more contact be not called in the box than what was called on that one. It's arguable, like I said, but yeah, you could say this game could have been 2-1, 3-1. Obviously, if it's 2-1 minus the penalty, totally different game, especially in those last 20 minutes. But did this game kind of play out how you thought, Coach?
Yeah, a bit. I think Lee knew going into this game they could not play from behind against Rockwall. Knowing what Rockwall's done the last few games, just grinding it out. They grinded it out with some really good teams. Like I think everybody expected Allen was going to make it to the final after knocking off Eastlake. Or we even thought Eastlake would probably be, that was like our dream matchup, Eastlake versus Lee, because they're the mirror image of each other.
Right.
But Heath, just found a way to get in, and I didn't think they played their style of game in this game, I think they would have had a chance. Lee really dominated the game more. They played more to their style. I mean, they got a little too cute on some some of the attacks and some of the plays they did. I think they needed to keep it a little more simple, but they did flex their muscle. Especially like that first goal was a beautiful goal. Good first touch.
Yeah.
Send that and blasted the ball in, and they had other opportunities to go in, but the shocker was of that second half that Rockwall was just staying back. They became the aggressor in the second half, and like you mentioned, the first 10 minutes, Lee was on the ropes. They were on the ropes, and Rockwall was trying to get in. They almost got a few, and they almost got, like I said, that goal. That one goal they got disallowed. That could have changed the complexion of the game, and who says that they couldn't be on penalty kicks right right now or so forth. But Lee was able to get that second goal to really kind of get the pressure off, and I think that really forced Rockwall to kind of open up the game, and it opened more for Lee, and they were able to kind of run out the clock, even though there was some stuff that came up, especially with the red cards, which we'll talk in a bit. But like I said, I think Lee's game plan worked out great. They played their game. That's what they needed to do, because they didn't do that against Flowermont in 2019, and they got them the championship.
Yeah. And here's a question here from Hoops Mike. Still not sure what to make of Rockwall. Did it seem as chaotic and overly physical watching as it seemed? I don't know. I think did it have its moments of some chaos? Yeah, I think more so, especially after that first goal came, because I think that was kind of part of their game plan, right? Is to try to out-muscle them to a certain extent, because they also, which you can sometimes see when you're going up against a very dominant, a very technical, very good, a squad with a very high level of soccer IQ. Once that first goal came, you kind of got the impression that that's for a little bit. Now they're chasing. Now Heath is chasing the game a little bit more. So now that, I guess, that controlled aggression kind of starts to get away from them a little bit. And then, you can argue, obviously you can make the argument that the referee should have maybe booked someone a lot earlier, take control of the match a little differently. But I also get it in terms of being an official or having been an official. You don't want to be the story. You don't want that to be the reason that it impacts a state title game in one way or the other. So it can be tough. But yeah, I think then second half started just as you said, and I was really surprised how Heath was able to kind of control, I guess. They just winning more 50-50 balls, first to a lot more balls, and Lee was just, I think they were just kind of a little I don't know if it was flat or maybe that was just part of their response to how kind of aggressive Heath had been in the first half with them. And then but during that time, Heath never capitalized, never fully took advantage, never, you can argue the one goal, right? The goal that was negated, which I believe should have been a goal. But then after that, Lee returns back to Lee. And I think this is part of the big difference between this squad and the 2019 squad is this squad, whenever it would start to kind of get chaotic, for lack of better words, or start getting away from them a little bit, they were able to settle it down. Return to them, keep it simple, play simple. All right, connect their passes. All right, and take control possess, and that was to me, I think that was one of the biggest difference, because you already know how smart they are, you already know how talented they are, how technical they are, and they responded. They responded. You have halftime, second half, Heath puts in Eli Finley, they're in goal, and they capitalize on a set piece, on a great header, great finish. They responded well, and that's the difference with the squad. With Lee is when that little window of opportunity opens up and you don't take advantage of it, because Lee's going to come back. Lee's going to capitalize. Lee makes you pay for it, and that's why they're state champions.
Yeah, I did notice like a lot of the passing on Rockwell's side, some just lazy passes would get intercepted by Lee, and boom, they're turned into counterattacks. And I think once they kind of weathered the storm a bit, Lee started to go kind of flexing their muscle a little bit more. They were getting more opportunities. Like I said, they got that second goal. They missed out on a couple other ones and some little breakaways. This could have turned out to a 4-0 game as well, or 4-1. And really, Rockwell just really didn't recover from that. Offensively, they just didn't really have any someone to go to. It was kind of by committee, but that committee wasn't really consistent. I know they had one good shot. I think Joey had a really good save, but like I said, I think hopefully maybe, like I said, for next year they learn from this. Maybe having that one not star player, but up front, but someone that can finish. I think that's where they were lacking. They didn't have someone that could really finish the balls during those crunch times, or try to get back into the game and so forth. So I think that was the missing ingredient for Rockwell for this game. But like I said, Lee, kudos to them as far as weathering that storm and then finally kind of wearing them out and getting and taking advantage, because they basically kind of not let go of the ball too much towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and you had first name escapes me right now, but Boland was the player of the match there for San Antonio Lee, and had the first goal off the assist, I believe, from, so was it Sanchez? I think it was. But kudos to them, but also I think you come away from that match, and I think you can make the argument that Joey Petroni from Lee's goalkeeper, incredible match. Made some big time saves. I know on that one set piece that was right outside the 18. If he doesn't punch that, if he doesn't clear that out, there's no telling where that ball is going to land, because it looked like it was headed for the back of the net. So he was tremendous. He was tremendous, and just really loved watching that San Antonio Lee squad play. Them and Frisco Wakeland, you see them, and there's certain things that's embedded in them as a culture, as a system. They know who they are, and they play to that. They play to that. So yeah, that's very special, very fun to watch. So again, that's your 6A boys. The final ends up being 2-0 San Antonio Lee over Rockwall Heath, and San Antonio Lee is your 6A boys state champions. They win their first state title in over 50 years, and Rockwall Heath, your state runner-up, who Rockwall Heath, you can also argue, is not sure where they are exactly in terms of personnel, how many seniors are graduating, who they're returning, but I know you can argue that they are definitely ahead of schedule. So congratulations to them as well. So any final thoughts on that game, Coach? The 6A final that we saw just a little while ago?
Just kind of towards the end, it kind of got a little chippy. I mean, it did get a little ugly. I think some people did lose their head in the game. I think Joey, especially with Joey, I know he got hit in one of the plays and he retaliated back. I think you got to learn you can't do that in the game, especially even if maybe you still have control of the game, but to go down a man, and get that red card. You put your team on the grind, and all of a sudden, let's say they tie it up, and then you end up losing in overtime or in PKs. You can't take things for granted. You have once you have a game of control, there's no reason to lose your head. I know some of the Rockwell players also lost their head. They got a couple, yellow cards. So I think one of them did get a red card. So, it did kind of end, not to say ugly, but just, not very smart as far as, trying to finish games, and when you have a lead and so forth. But, kudos to the backup keeper, made a good save. And I think they put the third keeper in too towards the end, and he made a good save too. So I guess one thing you can say about Lee, they're a goalkeeping factory there. So,
Right.
so like I said, but you can't, like I said, I think one lesson learned next, so hopefully maybe I think the younger players, you're the juniors and your sophomore, freshman players, you cannot lose your head during especially in the state championship game. You can't put yourself in a disadvantage, regardless if you're winning or not. I think things can change. Sometimes you do need a little luck to win a state championship as well. So hopefully they'll learn from that. But like I said, congratulations to Lee. They're bringing back the championship here to San Antonio.
Yeah. I mean, perfectly said. I mean, well said in terms of composure, character. And I know Joey. I think he knows he's better than that. His coaches know that. The program knows that. That's not a reflection of the person, the player he actually is. So, Hoops Mike here with poor Joey got the red card, followed by but was a GOAT performance until then. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, so I think that, interesting thing here that I was noticing is, so it was a Region 1 DFW /2. They take 2 of the 3, and the other one goes to Central, to Central Texas, to the Centex. On the girls' side, you have Midlothian Heritage and Flower Mound out of DFW, and then Dripping Springs, Drip wins it on the girls' side. So, and then on the boys' side, you kind of had the opposite. You had the South/Centex, your San Antonio, who they win 2 out of 3 with only DFW winning 1 on the girls' side. So Bernie and San Antonio Lee winning on the boys' side today, and Frisco Wakeland winning the 5A on the boys' side today. So, what do you think about when you look at those you look at that? Is there anything there? Any trends? What are your thoughts on that? Is there anything there or not really?
Actually, if you notice, there was only one Houston area team that made it to a final, and that was Kingwood Park.
Right.
The rest were DFW versus Region 4 matchups. That was the only representative from the Houston area. So that shows that especially where we're at, for where I'm at, Region 4 has caught up. And, because normally it's been dominated by Region 1 for the Metroplex teams winning state championships. But Region 4 is finally catching up. And like I said, things are probably going to get better for Region 4. I think Region 3 took a step back. I know back in the day they had some really good powerhouses like you had like Branham, you had like Klein, your Friendswoods, your Kingwoods. They were the dominant teams. The Houstons, you would see them in the state title games, but slowly but surely, Region 4 has overtaken Region 3, and then they're closing the gap on Region 1. And part of Region 2 too as well for that Metroplex area. So that's what for this whole weekend you can see, and that's only, like I said, that's a good thing we want. You want a good balance, good even matchups going into the the state semifinals or the Final Four, especially the final game.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on why that is? Because I think that's what I kind of see. It's clear that region, not only is it Region 4, but even I think the other part too is just these non-traditionals, right? Corpus, Cal Allen, first out of Corpus, talked about it earlier. Diamond Hill Jarvis, first ever out of Fort Worth ISD. Yeah, they're DFW, they're they're Region 1, but excuse me. But they had never been there before. And then you have, and then on the girls' side in 5A, you have Dripping, you have a Hill Country School winning a 5A state title. what is so it's obvious that there's a certain trend there. You can argue Region 4 has caught up. Region 3 has maybe taken a step back. But what do you think are the reasons why we're seeing some of that with Region 4 versus Region 3, and maybe even some of these non-traditionals that are taking these big steps forward? And then even Dripping Springs been knocking on the door for a while, obviously, and they finally, they're able to finally get it done. Because I know they probably think this is way overdue. So what do you think is the reason for some of these things that we're seeing? So because we can identify them maybe as a trend, but I guess the question is how or why?
I think the big why is there some of these teams, like I said, you can say like here in Region 4, like Dripping Springs. I guess the off season, the more of them are playing a more competitive, club soccer. I think that's been a benefit. Look at Dripping Springs. They're a one-town school. I think that's helped them because they're not losing talent to maybe a district that has 10 to 15, 10 to 20 schools in a district, or within an area, minus Wakeland. Well, Wakeland's in a 12 school district. So that's kudos to them because more schools you open, you're kind of also you're spreading out your talent.
Right.
Imagine if Frisco had just one team, they probably win state maybe every year. And that's what I'm starting to see in a lot of the trends is that a lot of the bigger places, when they open new schools, is just pulling away, more talent and it's spreading them out. But when you get to some of these like schools like Dripping Springs or like Bernie, I mean, look at Bernie is just two schools, but still you still have a good core group of players that you can still build upon. I think that's a little advantage as well. But a lot has to do with what you do off season, what your players are doing off season, and a lot of them are getting into more competitive, play in soccer. A lot of them are playing the ECNL or say Classic League. I think that's what's helping them, get some of the, helping lift those programs. I'm sure that's what's helped Corpus Christi. I'm sure they have some girls that are playing club now. It's helped them get more competitive. Same thing with with Diamond Hill. I think if they can keep on working off season and playing a more competitive soccer, they'll take even more of a bigger step. And I think maybe that's a model for maybe some of the other teams around the state is getting a good off season program, getting your players to go play competitive soccer if they have the opportunity, or try to create that opportunity, so that way, you can really compete. Every season.
Yeah, and we talked about was there any one team, coach, when you look at it, maybe on the girls' side in any classification, and maybe even on the boys' side, is there any one team that you think if they end up in this match, had things gone on maybe a little bit differently for them, and they end up here, could have really made a gigantic factor in how any of these state title games played out?
That's what was that?
No, I was going to say, anyone stand out to you? Anyone you're just kind of like, because I know I have one really that jumps out at me. It's on the 6A boys side. But I didn't want to mention it in case that's what you mentioned. So,
well, you can mention it because I'm still kind of thinking it through.
Yeah, well, for me, I alluded to it earlier in terms of these kind of dream matchups, and the one I really wanted to see that I think would have been just like the grand stage, the way to absolutely finish out the season would have been San Antonio Lee versus El Paso Eastlake, just because a couple things go a little differently. You go back to, and of course, unfortunately, Eastlake didn't get it done, and Rockwell Heath did, and that's kudos to them. Absolutely, not taking anything away from them, but you have Eastlake playing against Allen, regional final, have everything going their way, and then in the last 15 minutes, they just things went Allen's way. Allen kept playing, they got it done. But I think, they figured that one out. I think maybe they match up well with a very good, very, very stingy Heath defense. But if they're here in a state title game versus San Antonio Lee, I think that would have just been, an epic matchup to watch just because they're identical. So then you're talking about who blinks first. It's a big game of chicken. Who's going to move first? So for me, I think that one would have been maybe ultimately. Is it still advantage Lee? Yeah, I think so. But still, I think in terms of styles and matchups, that would have been a tremendous matchup, in my opinion.
I think the one out looking back would be the Prosper girls. Had they not lost to Flowerman, would they be the ones lifting the state title? But imagine them playing Vandergrift. That would also have been an epic game too. As well. I think that really would. It's just the same caliber with Flowerman. That would have been an epic game. Or even like Round Rock had Round Rock beaten Vandergrift. Round Rock versus Prosper or Flower Mound. Those would have been probably the dynamite 6A matchups going in. I think also like the Wickland girls, would have been, had they made it, would they have been able to correct, the Wickland girls. The Highland Park girls, they've won state in the past. Had they not lost, would they have been the ones been able to crack through Dripping Springs in the final? Yeah. So, those are some really, could have been, matchups that I think there still would have been great epic games too, going into this weekend.
Right. And it's not a coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's just also, I think it's to highlight how hard it is to get here, how hard it is to get to the state tournament, to a state final, and then to win it. Because so many things, I think I'm pretty convinced. I tell you, it's not enough to just be good. It's not enough to do everything that's expected and more. Somewhere along the way, you have to get a little lucky. So, you look at the 4A girls matchup there. What if things kind of play out a little bit more like how some people thought? What if that's a Midlothian Heritage versus Bernie matchup, the 4A girls, right? That could have been maybe a totally different, not outcome, but just that's going to make for a totally different matchup, obviously. Jesse 03527676 has following up your comment, Coach. She says, Wakeland reminded me of the Brownsville Porter squad as far as touches. That'd be a good matchup. Thoughts on that?
I think that would have been a good matchup. The one thing about Porter, they can play defense. They have a really good defensive team, and they can touch the ball. I was just really surprised that they lost to Valley View. Seeing Valley View, like I said, also in person. If I was Valley View's coach, there's some things I would fix. But like I said, that would have been a really interesting matchup. Another matchup was, we're talking about the Dripping Spring boys. They were one of the favorites. How would they have matched up, versus Wakeland or another 4A team, going in. I think another team that maybe I was anticipating to get the state actually for the 4A boys was Palestine. Yeah, we forgot about them. Imagine them versus Bernie. I think that would have been really. I think Bernie would have gotten run for their money for that game. To Palestine to lose a PK is another surprise team was Salina. That just shows you it does take, no matter how good you are, no matter how, what players you have, sometimes you do need a little luck to get to the next round. And that's with any tournament, you need that one little ball just to go one way than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We saw that game, how close, how games could go so differently with, his name is escaping me right at the moment, but the defender for Lee, that state semifinal matchup, if he doesn't save that ball that was already headed for the goal, I was almost on the verge of the goal line, right? That totally changes the game. In that state semifinal. So they can be very different for sure. So Hoops Mike, which lower class champions would have been able to win a higher level? Oh, we had this conversation. So, yes, Davis Kelly, Hoops Mike. Thank you. Yes, it was Davis Kelly, the defender for Lee. Incredible goal line saving clearance. If you haven't seen that on Twitter, please go back. It was carried by Texan Live. Great call. Part of, I think, what sells that one was the call, right? The call. The commentator was like, "It's already going in," and then he has to change his call, his play-by-play call, right at the last second as Davis Kelly cleared it. So, yeah, thank you for that one, Hoops Mike. But Coach, so Hoops Mike's question here: which lower class champions would have been able to win at a higher level?
I think the Wakeland boys. I imagine them versus Lee. That'd be a dynamite game, and hopefully, maybe for next year, they're playing that showcase, that North Texas Classic showcase. Wakeland, if you're watching, get in that showcase, and we'd like to see a Lee versus Wakeland matchup in that first game. That'd be a great one.
Yeah, I think,
girls side.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach.
Okay, go ahead. Girls side, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was going to one-up you on that one. I was going to go back to what you said, because I know I had this conversation also with one of their coaches, is how about the Bernie boys? You know, they finished, I believe 22-1-1 on the season, and their only blemish, their only loss is to the 6A state champion in San Antonio League. Right? You talked about it earlier, and that's a San Antonio Lee squad that also, I think they were up, was it 1-0 at halftime, I think, in that one?
Yeah, Bernie was winning that game. And then Lee kind of got serious, and I talked to Coach Rogers about that. He said, "Yeah, they had us down, and we made some adjustments, and we were able to pull that off." But he said that they got out thinking out of the skin of their teeth. You know, like I said, they got pushed.
Yeah. So a 4A taking it a 4A state eventual state champion, taking it to a 6A eventual state champion. So that's saying a lot, I think, right there. But go ahead, Coach. You were talking about the girls' side. Sorry.
Yeah, the girls' side, I think. Midlothian Heritage would be. I think they can compete in 5A. I think maybe next realignment, I wouldn't be surprised if they move up to 5A. They'll be one of the favorites, and they're in Region 1 5A. You know, I know they'll have some tough competition. You know, going into like I said, imagine them going up against Wakeland in a regional final or semifinal. I think that'd be a really great game. So I think that's one team. I think Kingwood Park can compete in 6A. I think like I said, especially Houston being down this year, because like I said, we were surprised that Jersey Village won the Region 3. I didn't think they were going to win I thought Tompkins or maybe Cinco, one of the KDISD teams. They've been pretty dominant. Or Ailey Felsick was going to win the Region 3, but no one imagined Jersey Village. But I think Kingwood Park have a good shot at, you know, getting to, you know, being a tough, you know, one of the best teams for 6A.
Yeah, and Hoops Mike chimes in here talking about the Fritz kid was really special. So, yeah, thanks for that, Hoops Mike. Yeah, this is, you know, I'm looking at it. I look back on it, and it's like, and it's almost like, okay, you have your state champions, and now if you could have a state champion versus a state champion matchup, you know, how about that Dripping Springs defense versus the Flower Mound attack? You know, what would that be like? So yeah, I mean, just obviously they're what ifs there at this point. You know, the season's over, but yeah, I think, I mean, even Midlothian Heritage, you can't tell me that they wouldn't. I guess, for lack of better words, not only compete, but possibly even run circles around maybe easily 50% of maybe 5A schools. That's how dominant they were. So yeah, you know, and on a side note, one thing, you know, kind of a stat here. So, well, I have two stats that I kind of wanted to share, but this one, and I can't recall, I'd have to check the record books on this one, but I can't recall the last time we had a state, and of course it was maybe it was different because there was actual recovery time between a state semifinal and a final. But you had, I can't recall the last time you made it through a full championship weekend and there wasn't a single penalty. There wasn't a single match that went to penalties. So that's kind of, usually you see it more in the state semifinal than the final, but usually in the final there tends to be something, or at least extra time, right? We didn't have any of them, right? We didn't even have extra time, we didn't have any extra time. And then of course you had just your first game. They were kind of bookended. Your first match, Midlothian Heritage and Corpus Christi Cal Allen, and your last match on the boys' side, San Antonio Lee Rockwall Heath. Those were your only two clean sheets, your only two shutouts. Everything else there was multiple goals scored by both squads, both teams that were competing. So, what's your take on that? Anything? We go back to the whole how they were able to split the state semifinal and the final, and the logistics of that. We were kind of hoping, what if you would have had a Kingwood Park or something like that, or versus
I think it was Bridgeland versus Eastlake. Bridgeland versus Eastlake.
Eastlake and Bridgeland. There you go. Yeah. If we would have ended up with something like that, what would have happened, right?
Yeah, that. I mean, I can only imagine. I think we did the logistics on it. I think the halfway point was in San Angelo, right. So I think maybe something to kind of work out. Maybe I don't see a problem, extending the dates as far as the doing the tournament for soccer. I think maybe one of the models I do like is what baseball does. They play on the weekends, and it allows them to recover. And I think maybe that's something for next year, or the UIL maybe should take a look at, is have every playoff game be on a Friday, Saturday. That way it allows the players to recover, because, one or 2 days, and especially if you play an overtime game or a shootout, it's not enough time to recover and also to prepare, for your next opponent. So I think maybe that's something they should look into for next year or within 2 years, is that each playoff game be on a Friday, Saturday, and then you have enough time to recover, prepare, and then get ready to go. And then also, I think what it does, it minimizes the travel, like losing out. Like I said, we had teams, going out of West Texas on a Tuesday for a game to play at 11 o'clock in the morning or at 1 or 2. You use school time for those students. So I think that's maybe something that I think UIL can fix, and hopefully, like I said, they'll consider having weekend, playoff games instead of one on Tuesday or like a Monday or a Tuesday, to give these players at least recovery time to help, recovery time for those players.
Yeah, and that's, for our coaches that are listening, that's something that you really need to at least try to make it a point of emphasis. Take back to your athletic coordinators and talk to them in terms of, hey, what was, maybe it comes in small pieces, but maybe the separating the semifinal from the final with this amount of recovery was a great thing, because it made for the most part great state final matchups, right? Obviously, got to talk about is like, hey, the UIL has to. Yes, we're in a pandemic, but maybe the response wasn't the greatest in terms of no coaching passes, the $20 a head per game for a kid that's for a toddler, basically, and clearing out the stadium after every single game. Are there certain protocols in place? Yes. Could there have been a better plan for that? Could that have been handled better? Absolutely. So again, coaches, take that to your athletic coordinators. Talk about how the postseason, right? Can it be extended an extra week, right? So to accommodate these type of things, I think so. And this is also keeping in mind, this was a season that started about 5 days earlier than normal. But there's a lot to be said. And then it's very important, because you can have summer meetings this year. The UIL, they'll have their council meetings, everything. You take that to your athletic coordinators meeting with your district, your DECs, your district executive councils, and then they take that forward, make that, challenge that, request that going forward. And then, the other thing too is it's something to keep in mind, because this will be here before you know it, is we're going to be staring soon. We'll be staring at the realignment again. Realignment will be here before you know it. And then that will start in the 22-23 school year. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. You talk about Frisco Wakeland's gigantic district. You can almost make that Frisco district a region in itself. They got so many teams in there. But as we look to the off season, kind of lessons learned from the playoffs, Coach, or this season, the playoffs. Look to the off season and going forward, kind of lessons learned. What are some of your thoughts? Certain things that maybe you'd like to see that we can do a little differently, or maybe make some headway for when the season kicks off next year.
Well, one thing I was really concerned about, and I did talk to a couple teams. I know because I think the pandemic really played part of this. There was teams playing three games in a week, and that's a little risky for those kids as far as recovery time and so forth. And I'm sure that affected quite a few teams of maybe even making the playoffs. That the stress on the body, playing two games in one day is tough, but playing 3 games in a week, for these kids, it's it could, we're risking more injuries to that. And I wish the UIL kind of looked into that, and maybe, if you want to, kind of prevent that, is, space out the district. Like the one thing is, when we go into district play, you're playing twice a week, which is understandable, especially the amount of teams, in your district and so forth. But when you do that, maybe 12 consecutive weeks, including the playoffs, that's going to wear and tear on a player. And I think, going into the future, I think, like Sam mentioned, having the playoffs once a week will be one. I think another thing that should be considered, and no knock on Georgetown, but it's actually playing the final at a real soccer stadium. And we have 4 quality soccer stadiums here in the state of Texas. Now, if they're concerned, like I said, if they can play the state championship for football at Jerry's World, and they can play the basketball final at the Alamo Dome, I don't see why not we can't play the state finals at Toyota Field here in San Antonio, or the new stadium for Austin FC, or even Toyota Park in Frisco, or even the Dynamo's stadium in Houston. I would like to see a soccer at an actual soccer. I think it'll be better for the atmosphere, just having just being close to the action and so forth. And I'm hoping that some of these stadiums, like I said, are open to this idea. I know some do charge a lot in this and that, but hey, open the doors. This is for the kids. I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to say, hey, look, I got to, look at the football players that go to state. Hey, I got to play here where the Cowboys play, where some of these kids are, hey, I got to play here where FC Dallas plays, or San Antonio FC, or Austin FC. I think that's what needs to be considered. I think going on forward, for future references. And then also, I think, maybe even, starting I know the weather's a big thing, especially for my buddies up in the Panhandle, playing games in the snow, or canceling games because you can't drive in the snow. Maybe pushing the back, starting the season like in mid early February and concluding it in May. And I think the knock is, well, it's too hot to play. Hey, we're in Texas, we're used to the heat, so I don't think it'll make a difference. So, but that'll allow, I think, players not to lose time, practice time, and also travel time to games and so forth. So that's me. I think that's what I would do to improve high school soccer here in the state of Texas. And like I said, hopefully out of this, I think I can say this has probably been one of the most exciting years for high school soccer. I think losing out last year, this was the anticipation, and then having the finals, it brought a lot of excitement, especially like looking at the crowds. There was a lot more people out there rooting for, being out there. I got to talk to, I know for us at the, with the round table, and we got to see a lot of the fans, and I got to talk to some people from Laredo. They saw me live streaming a game and say, hey, where can we see the game? And check out our show, check out these podcasts. So you get a lot of information from us. So kudos to, like I said, to your, to the 50/50 podcast, and I know with us, even Lethal to pushing high school soccer. I think hopefully we can say, I know we're not there where the high school football's at, but I think we're bringing the excitement of this sport, and I think it also deserves the exposure that it really needs to, the exposure it needs to really get the sport lifted up.
Yeah, I mean that's perfectly well said. I think that it kind of a little bit of what I was going to allude to. I guess I'll follow that up a little bit. You hit excuse me, you hit on so much of it though, is that the where we are right now in terms of the game and growing, and I hit on a little bit earlier. It's kind of why I asked it, is again, to highlight one more time, because I know we have listeners that come in and out, but on the girls' side, Corpus Christi Cal Allen, first squad out of Corpus to ever make a state title game. All right, you have Fort Worth Diamond Hill Jarvis, first squad ever out of Fort Worth ISD to make a state title game. All right, San Antonio Lee, right? They've been knocking on the door. All right, obviously, incredible squad. 4 years in the making. They win their first state title in 50 years. Dripping Springs, a 5A on the girls' side, 5A girls, small hill country, in a hill country town, winning a state title. All these things, they're incredible stories for the game. We talked about in, I think it was episode 1, right, of Inside Texas High School Soccer. We talked about how Snyder High School, right, a program only their third year in existence, right, won their first ever state playoff game in school history. And yeah, I mean, you could say, well, any new school, right? But no, I mean, it's also it's a school in a very rural area. And when you see them having that kind of success at a 4A level, that says about where the game is headed, where the game is going. Got a message here from Hoops Mike. First year covering soccer after 18 years in broadcasting, 6 in Austin. Hidden gem of Texas high school sports. Imagine that. So Hoops Mike, first year covering soccer after 18 years in broadcasting, including 6 in Austin, and soccer being that hidden gem of Texas high school sports. Couldn't agree with you more, Hoops Mike. That's great stuff. He also follows up, loved my experience. Really fun to watch live and played at a high level. Yeah, I think that, a lot of it, you talk about where the future site is. I think, Georgetown is obviously, it's generally central. I think Georgetown ISD does a tremendous job in hosting it. I've been there, before, and they do a great job. They really do. Would it be nice to see? Could you play it in a Toyota field in San Antonio? Absolutely. For those of you that have never been to Toyota Field in San Antonio to watch a San Antonio FC match, it's one of the most intimate settings to watch a soccer game that there is. You're right on the players. It's right on top of them. It's incredible. And and then of course, I think they open up in June, right? I think the news at the Q2 Stadium. I think
Q2 Stadium. I think June 16th, 19th, or something. Where
Austin FC is playing, or as you refer to them, I won't say what you refer to Austin FC. But
it's a nice vegetable.
Yeah,
nice green vegetable.
Yeah, but I think that would that make for a great setting for UIL? The UIL is based out of Austin. Why can't they go there? Or you even talk about Michael Myers Field, home of they're in University of Texas. That's a great open setup designed for soccer. Of course, you have a track around it, but still, it's not the most ideal, but still more ideal, I guess. So yeah, I mean, so there's different venues, there's different opportunities, but these are the questions that need to get asked, and they need to get asked by us, those of us covering the game. Hoops Mike here hitting on it mentions some great things, gives us great input. But you hit on a great point. San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. I know you have just there in San Antonio. You got a great group. Extending it to others that are there. You have the Soysaf family out there. You have even Mr. Bowtie. What he's doing puts great content together in terms of the game and the great stories behind them. And then you have, came on the scene this year along with ourselves was Mr. Lethal Enforcer, right? So, trying to grow the game and us collaborating together. That's the only way it's going to work. And pushing the envelope, but pushing the envelope in a positive way, and kind of the more we can just simply demand it all we want as fans, as a community. But if we're not willing to go to the games, if we're not really willing to go to support, if we're not willing to talk to our communities, right? Our coaches, our athletic coordinators, our superintendents, and ask for more, ask for better, all right? Tell them to be better. Tell the UIL to us, like, hey, we could probably handle how we're charging tickets to get into our state title game a little bit better, right? And while we're on, so and then of course there's us here at 50/50 Podcast. We're only about I think 5 months in existence. And so we've we're kind of the babies in the arena, but as far as the independent organizations covering Texas high school soccer. But I think you're right. This was such an exciting season, and I've commented to many people before, including yourselves and Harry, that I don't think I've ever seen more coverage of Texas high school soccer than I have this year. So it was incredible. It was awesome. It was great to see. It was exciting. And I hit on the fact that just the mere fact that we were here, that we were able to play again, and we got through it safely. We're grateful for that. And to our communities, again, going back to their response, Dripping Springs, San Antonio Lee, some of the other communities, their booster clubs, they got, they put money together and sponsored, their students that wanted to go to a game, because again, UIL was charging, in case you didn't know, they were charging $20 per game to go to these state championship games. And there was that was a student. It was a flat rate. So it didn't matter if you were a 2-year-old toddler, if you were a student, if you were, if you were a senior, if you were a senior citizen, didn't matter. And no coach, it didn't matter if you were a coach. It was $20 per game. If you wanted to watch all 6 games, you had to clear after every single game, and then you had to go back in and pay again. So why I hit on that, it's not to beat a dead horse, but to also thank and congratulate our booster clubs and our communities here in the Texas high school soccer community that rallied, that came together and tried to get things done for their communities, try to get as many students there to go watch, to go cheer on their classmates and go cheer on an opportunity to go win a high school state title game. And some of the tweets that we've sent out as well, as far as the relevance, the importance of high school soccer and why it matters. You're seeing teams right after they win a state title match go absolutely nuts, and they want to celebrate with their communities. They want to celebrate with the fans in the stands. Or you see even in the small towns, right, whether it's Dripping Springs, Bernie, San Antonio Lee, as they're leaving, kind of getting the police escorts with like hundreds and hundreds of fans waving them, sending them off. It's really awesome to watch. It's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I think even like Diamond Hill Jarvis, I think they one of the school district board members gave him a nice steak dinner, the send off.
Yeah.
Those little, like I said, those little things are, really help programs out. And I'm hoping like some people are watching this. If you're a parent or love the sport, whether your kids go to, if that's the school in your area, go support them, go, help grow the programs, but really help grow the sport. I think that's the bottom line, is helping grow the sport here in the state. I had fun times listening to the lead drum line at the games. That's new too. Now we're having, the next thing we need is hopefully maybe they're watching. I know when I was a coach, I wanted to start my own supporter group. Have a group of my students. Hey, you're going to be here on the stands. You're going to be cheering us and chatting, playing your drums and all that, cheering us on for all 80 minutes. And, that'll be the new club, the supporter club there for cheers on the soccer games. So, those are just ideas like it's something a lot of these schools can do and get student involvement. Because I know after, with the virtual learning and this and that, hopefully now we're going back to some type of normalcy. Now this is the opportunity to bring everything hold and really get that support, out there at those games.
Right. Yeah, I thought, when you said that, I thought you were going to say vuvuzelas there for a second. I was like, no.
Yeah,
no,
dude.
no. No.
Alex, actually, I was at the Valley View game there, doing the little things that spin around like that.
Oh, the little noise.
I had this one lady playing the drums, and we just need someone with the smoke bombs and all that. So, like the ones that do it like in the Wawoneta in Argentina.
That and the cowbell, right? So yeah. I mean, great stuff. I think that, and I think so. Getting that word out, all these things that we're hitting on is like coaches. It starts with us in our community. If you have every coach making a push for this, within their program, within their school, with their athletic coordinator, with their faculty, with their fellow coaches, talk to your parents. It starts there. It starts at home. It starts, as getting more support at your games. And then, what we also took from this pandemic was now this newfound ability to stream, to have access to live streaming, right? So, which was awesome in itself, especially when you're trying to cover the sport, such as we are, and you can't be in all across the state all at the same time. So, yeah, I think a lot of great stuff there. But coaches, it starts with you all. It starts, the commitment there is, because if we're not willing to promote our sport, if we're not willing to advocate for our sport, if we're not willing to advocate for our programs within our communities, no one else is, and kudos to so many high school soccer coaches that do across the state of Texas. So many that really, they put in so much work, and kudos to the families of those coaches who also sacrifice a lot, who sacrifice a ton. So Coach, you got any, as we start getting ready to transition here, you got kind of maybe any final thoughts that you wanted to hit on? I know we'll be, I was going to mention a couple of things and kind of the future of maybe future podcasts of the this Inside Texas High School Soccer edition, but any thoughts?
Just thoughts is like I said, what a great season. I mean, it was probably one of the most fun seasons I've been. Like I said, I know I had fun when I was coaching, but not coaching anymore, in the high school, but doing the coverage, doing the live feeds, the live streamings, and doing the podcast with you, and also with the roundtable. It's fun. It's a great, just looking at all the people that on Twitter, just asking questions about about the sport, or just the amount of people being involved it's exciting. I'm hoping for that it carries on and going into the next year. I know, like I say, hey, starting Monday, it's a new season, and you're working to that season to get to that, to that state championship game. And, to all the coaches out there, all the players, put in their hard work, don't quit, keep on, take that next step, what, look deep inside yourself. So what can you, what are you willing to do? What can you sacrifice to take your program to that next level, or you as a player to that next level? So, like I said, that's what I'm looking for like this for the 2022 season. Who's going to be the contenders, the surprises again? Like, who's going to be our Diamond Hill Jarvis or Kai Allens? They're out there. We're probably going to, see maybe one or two like that next year. or we'll probably also see the usual suspects like Lee and Wakeland. So I'm looking forward to that. And like I said, it's an honor, talking with you also to, talking about this sport, one of the sports I really love. Not only, like I said, I have local, all my local teams, my pro teams, but like I said, I do love watching the sport, whether it's through high school or to the pros. Is like I said, it just runs in your blood, and I'm look forward to,
Absolutely.
For the future.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Absolutely. I think Harry, so co-host along with Coach Rafa,
Mhm.
Harry, who you can find him at RAMINCOL on Twitter. They're short for at RAM in Colorado. That's again at RAMINCOL. He does a lot of great work, obviously, especially in the lower level professional leagues. United Soccer FC, is that right?
Yeah, he was
His
actually
podcast.
today. He was
and
at
but
the Hornets and Athenians game today.
yeah, he was doing that. That's right. I remember I questioned him about a photo, but no, he's done tremendous work in helping us behind the scenes as well a lot. And I know he's really new to the high school game, the coverage of the high school game, but he knows his stuff when it comes to the game. But he said something really that resonated with me. He talked about how one thing that he's learned this year is how much the coverage of Texas high school soccer is growing. He talked about, obviously, with what you all have already been doing, which is how I met you all back in my San Antonio days, going back about 4 years now, with San Antonio Soccer Roundtable, but also us with the 50/50 podcast. Nate over at the Striker, what the Striker's doing. The Striker Texas is starting to do. They're more of a focus of a heavier emphasis on the pro game, but they're still providing great coverage when they do at the high school level. Lethal Enforcer, you talk about Mr. Bowtie, so it's growing. I think San Antonio is going to kind of be spoiled with the amount of coverage they're going to have, that they already have, I should say. And then, for our newer listeners, those that don't know, I've mentioned it before, but I still continue to get asked, so this is why I mention it. So myself and the 50/50 podcast, we will be moving to the San Antonio area in the next couple of months. We'll be, I call it the Hill Country. We'll be on the front porch of the Hill Country is what I call it. That's where we'll be. Love the Hill Country area. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to obviously continuing to grow the game out here in what can often be just forgotten about out here in El Paso, which has extremely high quality level of soccer. And this is my hometown, and I've loved covering it out here. Great people, great soccer, great fans, you name it. So continuing to cover it out here as well, working with you all, collaborating with you guys. I'm looking forward to that. This year has been great. Being able to put this 4-part series together with you inside Texas high school soccer during the state playoff run has been great as well. I was going to follow up your comment that Harry had with, or what are your thoughts? What have you learned? He talked about how he's learned this year that the coverage of Texas high school soccer, how much it's growing. But when it comes to that, is there anything really that you think you learned this year that maybe was an eye opener for you?
I think the eye opening was just how the level of talents changed, and then how I'm seeing more of an investment also too. I think back then, when I coached, you had your usual no knock on off, like they just hired somebody just to coach the sport. It's just soccer, who cares? I think now schools are starting to invest in these programs, and I'm happy to see that. And I know from the school that I went to, we didn't have the biggest support. We didn't have the support of our administrators. They're really not. They don't like the fact that we were winning more than the football team. or that we had more people trying. That's the thing. We had more players trying out for soccer. We used to, back in the day when I was coaching, we used to have 150 kids try out for soccer. That was more than all 3 teams on the football team at my alma mater. So, when you do something like that, you're doing something great. But nowadays, that was frowned upon. But now I'm seeing like the ministers, like when you look at pictures, like I see how the lead administrators, from their side, the principals has their back and the school districts have their back. It just brought like that community, that feeling like a family together. And that's what I do see on that. But the thing is, the investment now they're starting to invest in our program. We're just not it's just another program or whatever. Like this is not like except I know Texas high school football is king, but we're creeping up on them, and we're, like I said, they invested. A lot of these teams, are investing on these programs, and like I said, I mean, look at Wakeland. I mean, look what they've done. For a boys team to make state finals 4 years in a row, that's unheard of. That's where you want to get your program to, but the reason why they're because they invested in it and they believe in it, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing more in belief. Even here, like SISD, I saw like some of the teams in the SISD, they're starting to gain more belief. They're starting to gain more. They're getting a lot better. More support. So that's what I hope. Because for me, hopefully that's going to break through for everybody, and I think that's the eye-opening thing. And I'm seeing is the investment into the programs.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think the sport, excuse me, the sport has come so far. We still have a long way to go in terms of consistency and, the level of play and commitment level, excuse me, commitment level across the board, whether it be from communities, administrators on down to coaches, because that's where it starts. Again, it starts at home. But, my thing, you hit on a key word there in community. And I think that one of the things that I just really wanted to highlight when we look back on this season, because I know coming into it, like with my program here, in El Paso, East Letta High School, I got to do March 13th of 2020 was the last time I saw them, and I didn't see them again until December 1st of 2020. And yeah, we had virtual workouts, the best that we could do, but you know how that goes, right? Excuse me. But on December 1st, when we finally got to it, I was just kind of like, oof, what is this going to look like? Because out here, at one time out here in El Paso, we were like, dare I say, the epicenter in the entire country, right? It was that bad here. So the fact that we even got to start the season out here, but then we had to get very creative with our workouts. The social distancing, the masks, the no locker rooms. Like we weren't in a locker room at all this year, the entire year. No school was out here in El Paso. So when I looked back on it, I was just like, man, I just hope we can make it to the start of the season. And the weekly testing. Obviously, we're in a pandemic. Everyone was still virtual, so they were just showing up for practice and then going back home for virtual classes. We weren't able to get in a weight room the way we would have liked to. So all kinds of things were just, a whole new set of protocols and parameters. But yes, so despite the pandemic, and then we had across the state of Texas, we had so many families that were impacted by a big winter storm, right? And they were impacted in so many different ways. So our hearts go out to them, and our hearts go out to many families across the state that lost loved ones or friends due to the pandemic as well. And in spite of all of that, we came together as a high school, as a community at large. And so I think the winner here in the end is, especially in a year like this, is Texas high school soccer. From the coverage, the growing, the interest level, the amount of fans, excuse me, we talk about the interaction with, seeing booster clubs, seeing so many different communities step up and help their programs, help their communities. And it was so great to watch the the boosters or the supporters of not just particular programs, but just Texas high school soccer that were at games, giving us the live updates, right, on certain games, and breaking information, seeing the coverage growing by the independent organizations that we've mentioned here today, us being involved in it here, and you're seeing it, Nate down in the valley, you talk about Lethal out in Houston, you all there in San Antonio, us out here soon to be going that direction as well, and continuing it to grow, right? Continuing that demand, continuing to want better, not just more, but better, right? So I think in the end, like I said, the winner is Texas high school soccer. And it's been a privilege. It's been, absolutely, it's been fun to cover it this year. It really has. And to all our supporters, thank you so much. You've helped us grow. We're still growing. We're growing steadily. But in terms of our podcast, which you can find, we're being listened to in 9 countries. That's something I thought I would I did never expect. But so again, to our communities across the state, to our parents, our student athletes, our families, our extended families of those student athletes, our administrators, our athletic coordinators, and our coaches, right? Our coaches. Thank you for a lot of the hard, so much hard work, so much sacrificing, so many changes that you had to, adjust to this year. So it's been fun. It's been great. So can't thank you enough. So be on the lookout. We will have down the road, I know we'll transition. We start to transition here towards the summer, but I'll try to see if Coach Rafa is up to it. We can get together and put together a couple of these shows in the next coming months, maybe with different angles. Maybe see if we can take some input from supporters, from coaches, from fans, from student athletes. So continue to support us. We're grateful every day. You all are the reason why we do it, and in an effort to grow this game. So thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. Coach Rafa, this has been awesome. Thank you for doing this with us. It's been absolutely fun. Again, congratulations to both our runner-ups, our state semifinalists, our runner-ups, and of course our 6 state champions today. So thank you again for everything, and until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.